Okay, Sensei, Hector wants to know uh, your first teacher.
My first teacher was a man named Senor Wainwright, and he had been in Japan as part of the Allied occupying forces in Japan after the Second World War. And he became a student of O Sensei and practiced Aikido at Hombu Dojo and obtained Shodan from O Sensei. O Sensei then said, please go back to your country and try to spread Aikido. He was a very good man. Also, he was, I think, Sandan Judo. But in those days, the martial arts were very, very new. And he was a very, very good teacher. And I was with him for quite a number of years.
You stayed with him how many times, Sensei?
I trained with him at least twice a week. And then Chiba Sensei came to England in 1968. And I trained intensively with Chiba Sensei over a period of about 11 years. And also after that, I practiced with Kanetsuka Sensei for another 15 years. Interdispersed with those times were special practices with people like Tamura Sensei, Yamaguchi Sensei, Ikeda Sensei, Kanai Sensei. So I was very privileged to be able to practice with many of the Uchideshi of O Sensei, the founder of Aikido.
Okay, thank you, Sensei. Sensei,
Yes.
what is the most difficult moment for you in Aikido, and why that moment was be difficult?
That's an interesting question.
I try to make an interesting question, Sensei.
Thank you. I think that I had no concept of easy or difficult training. We just train. So that I had some very hard training with Chiba Sensei. Sometimes it felt like he'd nearly killed me. I got severely injured, but I just took it as part of my normal training. And it was we never thought, oh, this is good or this is bad. We just carried on and accepted everything and trained.
And that answer say me you don't have a bad time or
Uh,
difficult time.
Looking back, very
Uh-huh.
difficult. But at the time, we just accepted everything like a warrior. So Chiba Sensei's attitude to us was that if you got injured, it was your fault. Even if he injured us, uh, we were supposed to believe that we did it to ourselves. Yeah.
Sensei, in these days, I speak with Isawa Sensei, the president of the International Aikido Federation, and he say me in 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 Hombu, I'm sorry, Sensei, in the Sensei Dojo,
Yes.
maybe in that time they train like a Chiba Sensei teach you.
Yes. Interesting. It was very hard training, but I was very young
Do you think
and
it's correct?
it was correct for those days. Now it has become unacceptable. I think
Yes.
this was a good way to learn, and the mentality of people is very different then, especially so close to the end of the Second World War.
Mhm. In around the world, the people say Aikido don't works for the self defense.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
and maybe it's because in the dojos we don't train, and when I say we, I say me, I, not the other persons. Maybe we don't train hard, and we try to make the real technique in the dojo. I don't know how to say, but I think you understand me, Sensei.
yes, I do. This is a complex question. The real aim of Aikido is to become at one with the universe, and it's with one with yourself and everything that you come in contact with. And this takes time. And I believe that Aikido at a higher level it's totally effective. But the fact that we are practicing form, prearranged form, in order to try to attain this higher level, which is mental, spiritual, emotional, as well as physical. In order to attain that level, we have to do some very basic stuff, which actually may not work. But I believe that on higher levels, that Aikido is totally practical. When you reach a level where you are exhibiting yourself as a centrifugal unit, so that anyone who attacks you, it will be like attacking a tornado. And I believe that when you reach this standard, Aikido is unbeatable. I'm saying the word unbeatable, but in fact, we have no real feeling of wanting to beat anybody. So we want to harmonize it, everything and anything. But I really believe that higher levels of Aikido, using gravitational forces, centrifugal forces, and the forces that sustain our lives in the universe, once you reach this stage, then Aikido becomes totally practical. And the thing is that this level of practicality is very, very difficult to attain. So the normal Aikido that we see is for everybody. And it's possible that some people may attain higher levels of Aikido, but only through an understanding of hardness can you understand the power of softness.
Very interesting. The last time, Sensei, is very powerful. The softness, yes, Sensei.
Yes, if you think about water or air, if in the ocean, if there is a whirlpool, like what's the name? I forget the name in Spanish. A whirlpool.
Un remolino.
Remolino. Sí. Remolino. Even a very, very big ship, if it's caught in a big remolino, has no chance. And if you think about air in a tornado, you find maybe your car ends up in a tree, and it's only air. So if you can master these forces, then these forces are the forces that govern the universe. But these forces are difficult to attain. But I think that Sensei, when he said that he was at one with the universe, he was actually, what he was saying was true. Some people think that he was talking about some just spiritual concept or the ramblings of an idealistic old man. But if you think about it, what if he was saying the truth and we miss it? We have to be very careful.
Thank you very much. Christian wants to know if you, in some time, you feel frustrated with your practice in Aikido and how you can manage that frustration.
Okay. It sounds very easy, but you have to let go of your frustration. Practice letting go. So on an emotional level, okay, again, what I have said to you quite often is that for every emotion, there's a physical sensation. So when you are sitting quietly meditating, try to feel your frustration, feel what it is in your body, follow it, don't let go of it, just keep following it. When I say don't let go of it, keep chasing it and keep observing it. Don't try to get rid of it, just follow the feeling of frustration that is actually in your body. And in the end, you'll realize that your frustration is an illusion and it can dissolve. You can learn to dissolve any emotional problem.
About your training with Noro Sensei? Noro? Yes. If you, when did you train with him? How long?
I trained with Noro Sensei on special weekend seminars, 1963, 1964, 65, and I think 67. And also I was on a week's intensive training with Naro Sensei. So he wasn't my direct teacher, as I said earlier, but I did spend some time with him. And he was a very impressive man. His Aikido was great. But because I was very, very young in Aikido, probably his technique was a little wasted on me, because at that time I didn't understand very much. I remember taking my 6th Q grading with him, and I did a very bad Shihonagi and probably a very bad breakfall or two and a few other things. And so he passed me for 6th Q along with 4 other people. And he said to us, "You will be the instructors of the future." And I said to myself, I don't think so, but here I am. So my time with Naro Sensei wasn't very much really, but I always remember him. Very impressive.
Now I want to have my own dojo when it starts, and the transition to be a student to be a sensei. He wants to know.
Probably about 40 years ago, I was working in civil engineering, practicing Aikido very much. I spent all my spare time practicing Aikido either by myself or going to courses every weekend almost. And I found myself in the grip of an intense drive to continue my Aikido practice, to the extent that I gave up my professional work and just practiced Aikido by myself for about 4 or 5 hours a day, maybe 5 or 6 days a week. I was very lucky to have the chance to actually buy our dojo over 30 years ago. And I've been learning ever since. And as you know, I practice Kundalini a lot, and I've had lots of information given to me and lots of guidance through Kundalini experience. So I don't know whether that answers your question, but I hope it does.
And I'd like to ask you, how did you confront this situation about training yourself, doing your own training, and how could you realize by the time what was good, what was the right way in Aikido, and what wasn't, and how can one? Thank you very much, Sensei, and I hope you're very good in this time.
Nice to hear from you, Christian. Yeah, a nice question. I practice very, very much using a bokken and a jo. And then after a while, I had the idea of using a very, very heavy jo and a very, very heavy bokken. And I realized that as I was training, I had to actually take ukemi from my heavy jo and take ukemi from my heavy bokken. And so when you take ukemi in Aikido, you have to minimize the resistance that you feel from your partner. And in the same way, using a heavy weapon, you have to minimize the resistance and muscularity that you feel as you use your bokken or your jo. So I learned a great deal about Aikido from this system. So practicing bokken and jo by themselves without any real sensitivity is good, but it would lead you to a dead end. If you try to practice with very heavy bokkens and jos, slowly but surely, you have to minimize the weight that you feel so that you're using, in the end, only centrifugal force and inertia and gravitational forces. So practicing with a heavy bokken or a heavy jo, you actually take ukemi from the jo, and also your jo or your bokken becomes your uke. So the only way to understand this is to actually practice. It's difficult in the beginning, but slowly and surely, using less and less physical strength, using very heavy weapons. I found this is very, very good indeed.
Thank you very much, Sensei, and that is very clever. Thank you very much.
What is your reason to practice Aikido? What is the motivation to practice Aikido now?
For me to practice Aikido is to sustain the feeling of becoming more and more in tune with the life force of the cosmos. The whole of the universe is actually a field of consciousness, and to become more and more in tune with that field of consciousness is a driving force that is within me and has been within me for a very long time. So really that is my motivation. So sometimes, of course, I feel tired and we have problems, but always this motivation is deep inside me, and I feel driven to continue my practice until I die.
Okay, thank you, Sensei. Angel.
Sensei, hello, it's nice to talk to you and see you again. Sensei, the question I have following what Christian and others said is regarding training, you know? My question primarily goes that of course we need to practice by ourselves, meditate, practice through the use of weapons like yo and boken. But question I have is like, how could you like, in a sense, continue teaching, co- considering the current situation where all of us are in a quarantine state? Like, how could we continue training and for example, the sensei's teaching, and how would you do it? That's my question. How would you try to continue teaching? That's my question.
Okay. Hi, Angel. Nice to hear from you. As I have said, we have to try to be motivated to understand that the movements of Aikido and the principles of Aikido are there in the Jo and the sword work if we look very closely. And so by constantly not just practicing mindlessly, but practicing sensitively with the bokken and the Jo. For instance, knowing when you're forcing too much, knowing when you have no focus, trying to gain a continuity of consciousness. So these things should be incorporated in your solo practice. So if you just practice with the bokken and Jo and think of other things at the same time, this is not good. You should put your whole self into every cut, every strike, every movement that you're doing, and have a continuity of consciousness, a flow of consciousness. So this is difficult in the beginning, but this should be chased and sought after constantly. So as you're making shomen, for instance, try to feel your sword from moment to moment to moment, somehow slowing time down for yourself. This can only be done with constant practice. Trying again to feel the tensions in your body, the tensions in your mind, and slowly learning to disperse them. This can only be done not by reading about it or hearing about it, but by actually doing it and putting yourself through sometimes physical difficulty.
Thank you very much for that answer.
Hello, Sensei. I would like to ask, it's more about the spiritual belief. I know Aikido brings with itself some kind of spiritual belief, but I would like to know for you if it was first the spiritual belief or if it came with your practice in Aikido. I know you practice Kundalini and Kototama and that it is important for practice, but to many of us, it is not that easy to understand. So how can we kind of get close to that?
Really, there should be no separation between the physical and the spiritual, the mental and the emotional. But again, it's difficult, and we as human beings tend to split things up and sectionalize things, putting things in different boxes. But if you practice with your spirit, if you practice physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually at the same time, then you have a complete system. So human beings don't exist basically as just physical entities, but we are physical, mental, emotional, as well as spiritual. And our physical practice should be joined with all these other aspects. So the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual should be done as you practice your Bokken work, as you practice your taika, as you practice your partner. Bearing in mind that, again, it takes self-observation and observing yourself if you're practicing with a partner, observing your own mentality, observing the mentality of your partner, trying to harmonize with yourself as well as your partner. So by practicing Bokken and Jo, using your mind and actually feeling what's going on from moment to moment is a very, very important part. Again, a continuity of consciousness. This continuity of consciousness should be totally honest. By trying to develop a continuity of consciousness, you have to look deep into yourself, and sometimes you will see things that you don't want to see, aspects of yourself that you didn't really know existed and that you don't really like. But this is your time to fix those things and to put things right. So that's my answer. I hope it's okay.
Sensei, this question is in behalf of a new student. It's a 6Q student, Elisa. She wants to know why did you choose Aikido? If you had any other option, for example,
Hi,
or
Lisa.
how do you? Yes.
Yes, I understand your question.
Okay.
When I first started Aikido, I had no idea at all where it would be leading me. And really, I suppose, in being quite honest, I started Aikido by accident. A friend of mine asked me to go with him, and he was asking me for over a year, and I never did. And in the end, he became quite insistent, and so I went along with him and watched a class, and then I joined in a class, and it was really, I had nothing better to do, I suppose, at the time. And I didn't realize the great value of Aikido. I didn't realize what a great gift to humanity that Aikido was. But this is something that I found with constant practice. Okay, Lisa?
In your work, you had a great physical force. Did it serve you in the first years of Aikido? I mean, you use a lot of brute force, or yes, that's it. Or how did you started learning it was not about physical force?
As a young man, I enjoyed using my body very much. I was very, very strong. I used to do lots of climbing. I did lots of weight training. And I was considered to be very, very fit. And I was practicing Aikido at the same time. When Chiba Sensei would call me to take a kemi, he would say, "Hey, strong boy, come." So he just used to call me strong boy for the first couple of years. And one day he said to me in front of everybody, "Why do you practice Aikido and practice weightlifting?" And I said to him, "Oh, I enjoy practicing weightlifting and I enjoy Aikido, Sensei." He said to me, "You will not enjoy Aikido today." And he in the end, he gave me such hard training. I had severe concussion and I had to stop training for 3 months to overcome my concussion. I still have the marks on my head. But I came back and he said, "Where have you been?" And I said, "I've been busy." So
You answered that, Sensei.
yeah.
What values and things should we focus on? Like growing will be the word. Yeah, like trying to develop them in our inner world. Like what should we try to develop and keep working on, especially during these trying times?
You should always try to keep a balance between your inner world and your outer world. This is very important. If you become too inner worldly, then This will make you out of balance. You could even become insane. So trying to practice being loving and caring and trying to appreciate your life more and more as you realize that in one moment it could be taken away from you. So this may sound a little strange, but you have to die of something. So hopefully we'll die when we reach old age, but most people carry on their lives thinking that they're invulnerable, and in fact they're not. So you have to let go of the fear of death, or if you can't let go of it, gently work on the fear of death. Try to work on the fear of annihilation. So this kind of fear is a fear that most people suffer from, either consciously or subconsciously in this world. And most people are living in fear, even though this fear is maybe subclinical. They don't realize that they are. So part of our training is to look deep into ourselves and see our fear and realize that there's nothing to be afraid of. So this is a matter of practice. This is not something that you can read or hear, but you actually practice it and make it a living daily practice in your life.
Thank you, Sensei.
Like Victor, he made this question. If he has some problem with the knees and they can do it Subariwasa techniques, how can make other exercises to be compensated?
Strange question. If you can't do Sawariwasa, then quite simply do everything standing. There are special exercises if someone can only sit in Seiza, and you can learn principles of Aikido by just moving your hips. So there are some advanced Sawariwasa exercises where, in fact, you don't have to move your knees at all. But if you can't even kneel down, then quite simply you can learn techniques sitting in the chair, sitting on a stool. The principles are the same. So these days I find it very difficult to do Suwariwaza and Hamihandachi. But I believe that Hamihandachi and Suwariwaza are really, really special techniques, because if you really understand the techniques of Aikido, they will work in Hamihandachi. And the higher levels of Hamihandachi necessitate no movement of your knees at all, and you can just say what you want to do by using your hips. So that's my.
Thank you, Sensei. Another question? ¿Otra pregunta?
Yeah.
¿Alguien más? Okay. Sensei, I think they don't have more questions, Sensei.
Okay. They're
Thank
great
you very
questions.
much.
Okay, can I just say to everybody that please keep safe, look after each other, take care of your families, and thank you all for your great support. And I really hope that when things get back to normal, that we can spend good times practicing Aikido together. I believe that Aikido is a usable, special gift for humanity, and I hope that we can practice this gift together in the future. So thank you so much.
Thank you,
so much,
Sensei.
Thank you, Sensei.
Thank you